Good morning, friends. Ash here, NPNP News. It's February 14th, 2026. Happy Valentine's Day. I think today is Valentine's Day. Hope you're doing well. There's a lot of information that's been coming out. We're talking about beef jerky now. We're talking about different things that have been happening within the Epstein files that are coming out that are very interesting because it is implicating the president, right? Even though they don't want to say it is. He's saying he's that it's justifying his stance, but it's not, right? Because these different people are coming out and making allegations now. There's a whistleblower coming out who alleges that not only was he abused by Trump, but that he abused Trump. That he did something to Trump that hurt Trump when he was being abused by Trump. This is a person that was alleging that his family member was the one that was trafficking him to these rich elites. And we've heard other stories of children who have been abused in this way, right? Which is either satanic ritual abuse but it's their family member that's doing it to them, right? That's not the only time we've heard that allegation. If you remember the girl who alleges that Trump was present for her infant's murder on a boat in 1984 in Lake Michigan, that girl was also being trafficked by her uncle to rich elites, right? I don't even like to call them elites. I just like to call them rich scum. So Kim Goldwyn came out with her new show. It was entitled Epstein Files in U.S. Prison Camps. I suggest you listen to that show very carefully because what she's insinuating is that ICE is not exactly what it appears to be, and that ICE is actually possibly locking up American citizens as well as removing illegal aliens. I haven't seen many people who were American citizens getting arrested, but there have been some that said they were arrested who had passports. But of course, a passport it can also be forged, right? Just because you have an American passport doesn't mean you're actually an American citizen. It doesn't, right? It could mean you have a fake American passport. Although the newer passport for the United States is very difficult to forge because it has a chip inside of it. It has multiple hologram technologies. ICE calls on Newsom not to release 33,000 criminal illegal aliens into the community. So that's what these people are doing. They just keep, look what Spain just did. Not that all the people they let into Spain were illegal, were criminal necessarily, but if you're letting 500,000 people into your country all at once, you have to assume that some of them might be. It was the same thing that Cuba did to us with the boat lift, remember, where all these Cubans poured into the United States? Well, some of those people were criminals, right? Didn't you see the movie Scarface? Of course, Tony Montana wasn't the original Scarface. The original Scarface was Al Capone, whose face got cut up because he used to work in a bar as a bartender. He made a comment about a guy's girlfriend at one point, and the guy cut his face up, right? Pulled a knife, grabbed him, sliced him up. Talking about Brooklyn back in the day, right? Some rough neighborhoods. Well, yeah, you said the wrong thing, you got hurt. And the only thing that kept him alive, I guess, was that the guy just cut his face up, right? He probably wanted to do worse to him. That's how Al Capone got his scar on his face. That's how he was called Scarface. Dow Jones hit 50,000 points for the first time, but your deficit is how much? 39 trillion, so you can see that the stock market is just it's just like I don't even know what it is. It's like a pinball machine, really. It's a game. It's not real. The stocks on those exchanges are not worth what they say they're worth. They're just it's all a pyramid scheme, really. Same thing with the crypto coins, right? How are all these coins worth so much money? Who says they're worth what they're worth? when almost none of them you could hold in your hand and use for any kind of commerce. Although Bitcoin you can somewhat. You can actually buy real estate now with Bitcoin. But what is the guy who, the newswoman Guthrie's mother was abducted or allegedly? That looks to me more that something's wrong about that case. Something's weird about it. But what are they asking for? How are they asking for the payment? Bitcoin, right? Why do they want it in Bitcoin? Because it's harder to trace it once you mix it into another coin or two. Democrat Ilhan Omar's husband's winery may be in trouble due to Islamic ban on alcohol. Yeah, who are you pitching this to? Obviously, it's not Muslim wine. You're not going to pitch it as that. You're pitching it to rich white people, right? And you're just maybe leaving Ilhan Omar's name out of it completely, right? Because that's not going to help you sell to anybody, really, right? More illegal alien truck drivers nabbed by the DOT after latest deadly crash. If you can't, I don't know how these guys are even able to go anywhere if you can't speak English or read English. How are you going to get to the destination? Are they just using, GPS, I guess, right? It used to be you had to learn how to read a map, right? Remember back in the day? If you didn't know how to read a map, your ass is lost, dude. I got out of many a jam driving around back in the day because I knew how to read a map, right? Yeah, you lost somewhere, you figure out the road you're on, get a map, find the road that you're on, find yourself, and figure it out, right? At some point, most smaller roads will bypass larger roads, right? So you'll be able to find your way back to a major highway at some point if you know what you're doing and you look at the signs and read all the signs properly. But if you can't read the signs, you're fucked. You got no concept of where you are or what the speed limit is or what to do. Mass amnesty in Spain heralds the end of nationhood. So they just let 500,000 people into Spain, most of whom are not Spanish, right? They're not from Spain. That's not their background. Their background is from African nation or some other place. You just, in one fell swoop, massively changed the demographic of your nation. And if these are mostly military-aged men like you did to all the other ones, how are they going to... Who do you think they're going to reproduce with? Well, probably nobody, because most of the women there don't want those men. But then they're going to start... I saw something highly, very upsetting that's going on in England where some of these Muslim men are waiting outside of bars and clubs for the women to come out who are drunk, and then they just grab them and take them off to, somewhere, and they rape them. And nobody's doing anything. Nobody's looking out for these girls, women. There's no security really outside the club. Once you leave the club, you're on your own, right? There's nobody to... And so this guy is sort of walking around with his camera, and he captures these two guys who are escorting with their arms tightly around, and he's asking the women, are you okay? Are you in trouble? Are you all right? Are you with these men? And they said, no, we are in trouble. We are not with these men. And he breaks it up, but that's going on. And I used to work, like I told you in the past, where delivering bread in the middle through the night, right? When you deliver bread on a bread route or a bread delivery route, you wake up very early. You got to be working through the night, right? By 5 or 6, the city, they don't want you around. They want you gone. So the city can wake up and do the commerce and the traffic can move, right? They want you out of the city and have all your deliveries done by like 5:30 in the morning, 6, right? They want you done because then everything else starts to wake up, right? Other industries have to move. Sanitation has to move. Other delivery people have to move that work at different hours during the day, right? You got to be cleared out. But what you see is from like midnight to 6 to 5 that's the crazy part. That's where people are passed out outside clubs. And yeah, you could get abducted. You can get, if your friends aren't watching out for you. Impossible material researchers create glass-plastic hybrid that defies physics theory. I keep hearing a lot about the Tartaria stuff. It keeps coming back around. The Tartarians, right, who were just erased from history. The Tartaria. which you can find on ancient maps. They had a lot of technology, like their bells that they had, these huge bells that could heal. And, people used to say the church bells actually would heal you. There was a resonant to the church bells plus the organ right inside the church, which is, shit, you can go to some churches in New York that have a massive organ. And I'm talking about the organ, that you play as an instrument, right? Just amazing sounds. Some of the bigger organs. And like I said, I used to have a friend that played the organ at one of the churches, and man, he would invite me to listen to some of his Bach concertos. I think Bach did some stuff for the organ, and it's just, I don't know what it is about it, but the complex way the notes fold into each other in some of these pieces just takes you to another place. One of my listeners was saying corruption to our nose is almost ready to spew. Yeah. It's all over the place. It's like a boil's been pierced and like all the pus and stuff is just oozing all over the place, right? Like, what was Epstein really doing, right? What I'm starting to realize is that if you think about it, right, all the years that Trump's hanging around with Ghislaine and them, well, what is he really doing? He's a part of it, possibly, right? He might be helping in some way. He's a part of it, I think, because one of these people that was allegedly abused by Trump, who came forward in the video that I posted the link to in this dig, and you could listen to it on your own because it's a long, drawn-out process where he's talking about being abused by different, and not only is he talking about being sexually abused, he's talking about being tortured. That some of these people, they don't just want to have sex with you, they want to torture you. They want to choke you unconscious over and over again, things like that, right? Bringing you back, making you think you're going to die, stuff like that, right? Because then they're making you produce massive amounts of fear and loosh, which not only they like to see, but that other beings are feeding on, right? That in other dimensions that are attached to humans, that it took me half my life to figure that part of it out. Because when I was having these panic attacks that all of a sudden manifested in my life in my late 30s, that I could not control, that I knew were not coming from me in a sense, I had to figure out a way to control that, right? To take back control of my psyche and my mind, because I was being manipulated by something else that was ramping up those panic attacks to the point where they were lasting well over an hour. So if you've ever had panic attacks or feelings like that go on, it's almost like if you've just had one for 10 minutes, you'd feel like it's like 10 rounds, 5 or 10 rounds of boxing. You ever box for like 3 rounds? How hard that is to like just hold your hands up in a defensive position and fight, right? People don't realize how hard that is. Try doing a round of 3 minutes of boxing, even shadow boxing, and see how, if you're not used to that, right, how stiff your arms are going to feel the next day and your back and all those muscles that you don't normally use, right? The pride flag was removed from the Stonewall National Monument in New York City, right? No flag should fly above the or on par with the United States flag. You can fly flags beneath that flag, but never on par with it or above. That's the rule. And so these people put the pride flag up. As soon as they took it down, they put it back up on par with the American flag, and then some of the people gathered around watching that were actually calling for the American flag to be burned. That's how radical some of these people are. Back in the day, if you were gay, like back in the 50s, you were at a problem, right? Because if you were going to illicit gay bars in New York back in the late 40s, 50s, you could get arrested. And not only that, if you were, say, a guy who worked on Wall Street, well, you couldn't be gay. Not back then. If you were an openly gay man back then, there's no way you're getting the promotion. You're probably going to get fired. You'd be ostracized by your colleagues. You couldn't be out of the closet back then. And some of these men were men who had whole other lives, right? Wives and children that never knew about the whole other side of their sexuality that they had, that they kept hidden from them their whole lives. It's just unbelievable. Texas dad fatally shoots his own daughter after big argument about President Trump. So you have people shooting each other now. And not just strangers having an argument about Trump. This is a guy and his daughter having an argument about Trump, and he kills her. And he's not going to do, apparently, much jail time, or if any, which is just unbelievable. I mean, the guy kills his daughter in cold blood over an argument, over a political argument. That's where we are in this country. So how are we going to come together in this end? We're at each other's throats. We're far from that. Guess who's coming to dinner? Epstein file photos show wild dinner party with Musk, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and Peter Thiel. They're all hanging out together. What do you think was on the menu for that dinner? Some human meat, maybe? I don't know. Maybe, right? Maybe some beef jerky? Maybe some... See, the other part of Comet Pizza that people forget was that some of the pizzas, right, were alleged to be made with human meat. Right? In some way. The sauce, something was, right? If you remember that part of Comet Pizza. It was like a bunch of things. It was the band playing downstairs in the basement that was talking about pedophilia, one. And then there was the possible, I think they did find something like a tunnel or access to something underneath in the basement too. He may have had a kill room down there, 3. But what was the other part of it? That some of the pizzas allegedly were being made with ingredients that were allegedly human, right? Plus all the other sick shit he had on the Instagram that they then had to go private on, right, where the kid was tied up and the Comet Pizza shit, right, all that shit. Then they send in the freak to shoot there to make it look like, oh yeah, look what, this is all a fake story and it's a Trump supporter, right? But that was a real story. Nobody ever questioned that the people of that band that were talking about all that shit. Nobody ever questioned anyone in that band. I'm surprised they didn't. But it's DC, right? Someone else's fault again. Starmer's chief of staff Morgan McSweeney quits over Mandelson scandal as PM claims to power. It looks like Starmer's about to go, right? Because the UN is in deep trouble. I mean, you thought that Bojo was going to help you, right? Boris Johnson, remember, he turned out to be just another deep state plan too. It's like every single person they put in is just the same person. Go all the way back to Thatcher. It doesn't matter. It's the same motherfucker every fucking time. Over there. Same with the United States. It's just one plant after another. It doesn't matter if it's Clinton or Bush. They're both controlled. Heartbroken family of student 20 who died in a burning Tesla after crash launched wrongful death lawsuit. Yeah. How many people did your car kill? That's my question. It's got to be dozens by now of people that have been injured, killed in this car, crashes that have happened, and yet this guy is getting a subsidy and all kinds of tax benefits. Why are we giving tax breaks to people like this who make an inferior product that's killing our citizens, who's rich beyond his wildest dreams, who doesn't need the... Same thing with Amazon. Why are we giving them a benefit of any kind, a tax break? They shouldn't get one. They should be taxed at the highest level possible. Excuse me. Trump's call to nationalize elections conflict with the Constitution. That's a problem, right? You can't nationalize the elections. That's not the way it should work. Get rid of the GEMS system, first of all. Get rid of Dominion voting machines, second of all. Get rid of Smartmatic, third. Get rid of all those systems and go back to paper ballots. That's the only option you have. And enforce and put some kind of voting law in effect that requires photo ID to that you need to have your passport to vote. Not a driver's license, your passport. Because that's the hardest thing to forge. It's also the most expensive document. And like I said, what's a document that's very important doesn't have almost any new tech involved with it is your social security card, right? It's basically just a piece of paper with your name printed on it in all capital letters, right? And your social security number, which is your slave number, right? Right? When you're born, when your mother goes into labor and her water breaks, right? You come down on water. You're birthed on water, which means that the system of your birth has been co-opted and turned into a maritime admiralty law system. You're born on water. You come through your mother's birth canal, right? Water flows through a canal, right? Unless the water dries up. When you have a river, on each side of the river, there's the river banks, right? The river banks. The banks control the river, right? The banks control the water. The water is the juice. The juice is you. The juice is the money. They turned you into a piece of money, an asset of the corporation of the United States. Your number, your name is your social security number. That's your slave name. That's your slave number. Just like when you go to jail, you don't have a name anymore. You're a number now. Just like when the Nazis made a concentration camp to put certain people in it that they didn't want to have in society anymore, that they wanted to exterminate, they didn't give them a name anymore. You had a number. It was tattooed on your fucking arm. You ever meet someone with a Holocaust tattoo on their arm? I have. That's something that'll sober your ass right up. Ghislaine Maxwell set to take the fifth before House Oversight Committee. That's in fact what she did, right? Excuse me. She took the complete fifth. She didn't answer one question. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Having a lot of problems with the voice. It's getting better. Massive energy influxes are coming in. The Schumann resonance the other night was so off the chain that I was like waking up a lot, man. Tell you what. That energy streaming through you when even if your third eye's closed, it's still moving through you. You just don't see it. You're probably feeling it though. I know I am. China critic and former media tycoon Jimmy Lai was sentenced to 20 years in a Hong Kong security case. It's a lot of time. Hamamdani aims to keep New York City's illegal alien crisis alive forever. He's going to keep it going for sure because it's a moneymaker for them, right? But the problem is you can't stream any more of these people in here. There's no work for them. How many food carts can you have, right? We already have a food cart every 3 blocks here. Right? They're all over the place destroying the city because they pollute the city, right? It's so polluted here right now. You can't get a breath of fresh air. Between the marijuana smoke, the pollution from these food trucks and food carts, plus the regular traffic, smog and smoke, yeah, it's bad. I wouldn't suggest going for a jog in Midtown Manhattan. It's probably not a good idea. So these people lied to us, right, for a long time. They said, oh yeah, no, we want to make a clean city. We want to make it all green. We're going to make the buildings go all green. Okay, well, that's great, but here's the problem. You got a food cart every 3 blocks that's running gas-powered generators, burning, that crap into the atmosphere. How am I supposed to get some fresh air? What if one of those carts are, 25 to 40 feet from my windows of where I live? How am I going to get a breath of fresh air if this guy's got some coals, right? Some of these guys have like charcoal, right? And they make kebabs. Well, what if I got a kebab cart? You see what I'm saying? You've lost the balance of where we are. There's too many food carts. There's too much stuff that's being given to these people who are coming here illegally, and you're taking away from the public's monies that should go to the public. And then when people try to remove those people, you attack those people, which I don't understand why you would do that when they're removing people who are here illegally, who are being given your taxpayer dollars. But these people are so brainwashed in the cities like New York and Chicago that they don't see it that way anymore. They want the illegal aliens to stay, even though some of them are hurting people and raping and killing people and causing accidents on the roads and driving drunk. Mamdani has a terrific idea for how the U.S. should handle the immigration issue. I'm sure he does. The Epstein cover-up just got so much worse. It's funny, but you see that some of the documents that mention Trump were then redacted back, and then they come back out later because they can't, What I'm starting to think is that Trump is actually working with Epstein and Ghislaine. He might be running the whole thing above them. He's definitely not an underling that's beneath Epstein, but Epstein is bigger than you think he is, right? But there's more than one of an Epstein type. Epstein's jacked into Khashoggi, the arms dealer. He's jacked into powerful Saudis in the UAE and other countries. So obviously this guy's not just procuring children, right? But that's one of the big things that he can do is procure women under the age of 18, which a lot of these Saudis want, especially if they're white. They love them. They love that. Of course, right? Most of that's the forbidden fruit that they can never have. Some hot European girl, blonde maybe, in that world is very rare. It's just like these Instagram models, right? That they're really just a form of prostitution that you can pay them, a huge sum of money, fly them out to Dubai for a weekend or whatever, and that's what they're doing. It's just basically another form of prostitution. That's why I went back on Instagram and I just got back off. They tried to ask me for another photo ID of myself. They keep asking for photos of your face now on these sites. They want clear photos of your face, which I don't give because I don't want to be in another database of yours. That way you don't have my face. I always have shades on in my profile pictures. That way you can't ID my face fully. Only parts of it, right? They don't like that. So every once in a while when I went back on Instagram, they find if I text something to a couple of people, they think I'm spam. I don't know what they do, but they say, oh, well, we need a picture ID. We need a photo of your face that's clear. Any social media thing that asks you for that, I would get off immediately. Because they want clear photos of your face so that they could put you into a photo IDs. They could have your face. The AI has you, right? That's why I don't interact with AI at all. The Epstein files and the gap between suspicion and proof, PJ Media. Another kind of big thing that came out was Trump declares that voter ID will be required to vote in the midterms. That's good, but what photo ID? Because if it's a license, what good is that? It could be faked easy, a photo of driver's license. It should have to be passport only. That's the real document that shows that you're a U.S. citizen, it's harder to get, right? But nowadays, I think a passport's well over $300 to get that document, I think, or close to $300 to get it, to renew your passport. I don't even have mine. Mine expired. I had one and I never used it for 10 years. I'm like, what am I paying for this thing for? I'm not going to Europe anytime soon. Can't afford it. And couldn't back then. The comment comes after the House passed a Republican-led Safeguard America Voter Eligibility Save America Act, which requires individuals to present proof of citizenship to register to vote and to show ID when voting. So proof of citizenship to register, that's big. Because that means you have to be a U.S. citizen to register, and you can't be an illegal alien. We were seeing illegal aliens were allowed to vote, right? Partial shutdown of Homeland Security Department begins after Congress fails to approve funding. Just the news. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is not expected to be impacted because of extra funding it received in its operating budget that was passed by Congress last year. So they still got backup cash. But that's not going to last too long. Are these people going to shut the government down or just try to not... I mean, Department of Homeland Security is one of the largest agencies in the United States government right now. It has a lot of sub-agencies that run under it. If you're not funding that, that's going to be a big, big problem very, very quickly. Trump admin support of coal has U.S. industry excited about the future after years of doubt. We shouldn't be using coal anymore at all. It's not clean. He loves to call it clean coal. There's nothing clean about burning coal, let me tell you right now. There's certain fires that are still burning in coal mines underneath certain parts of, I think, West Virginia or Virginia that they never could put out. Imagine there's a coal fire burning underneath where you live for like 50 years. And you live near there. Coal is not clean. It burns dirty. It's a horrible... It burns dirty, and to extract it is very, very difficult, right? There's people get black lung from doing it after a while. You ever see a coal miner's face after they come out of the mine? Their face is black, usually, with coal dust, which you're inhaling into your lungs, right, as you mine the coal. As you break the coal down and the dust that generates, these guys weren't wearing masks back then. You're inhaling it right into your lungs, and most of these guys also were smokers on top of that. So you get black lung, they call it after a while, and you die ugly, right? Zoran Mamdani backtracks on campaign promise for rental assistance, claiming it's too expensive. Yeah, it is too expensive. So is making the buses free. Yeah, it would be great if we could have a society where you didn't have to pay rent at all. That'd be great, right? Well, why can't we make it that we have enough room on this earth where everybody could have their own house if we really wanted to, or your own apartment or whatever? We have enough room to do it. It's just nobody wants to build homes for people with no profit. That's really the problem, right? Everybody wants to do something only if they could profit from it. We need people who have a lot of money to come forward and say, I'm going to do a project where I don't profit from it, but I'm giving something back to the society for the greater good, and I'm willing to do that with 100 million or 200, whatever it is, right, the amount. And maybe some big bank will come in and double that, and maybe some other guy. That would, that's how you do it. You can't make public housing for people who are on the marginalized part of society, who have been kept out of society. They have to have a way to live too, to get back into society, or else you're going to have people that you're forcing out of society, and then they're going to just live however they can, which is what's happening now. Right? You got to go from a greed-based culture to a culture where we're looking out for each other completely, right? And it's not all about profit and greed. That's the society. That's the age that we're leaving, the Piscean age. Right? That's the lifestyles of the rich and famous age. That's why you see all these people who are going to the extent that they're going to now with this egoic stuff that they're doing, whether it's through people that wear a watch that's $500,000. I just saw this thing, what's her name's walking around with a $500,000 handbag, one of the Kardashians. $500,000 on a bag. And you got people starving all over the world, right? People that need help. People that don't have a house to live in. People in the U.S. living in their fucking car. This girl's walking around with a house as a handbag. Right? You see these billionaires walking around with $1 million watch on their arm. How stupid is that? Why do you feel the need? Why don't you just get a gold bar as heavy as you can stand and get a big gold chain and just wear that around your fucking neck? That's what I'd do if I was a rapper. I'd get a big gold chain as thick as I could find, like gold rope, and get the biggest gold bar I could mint, right? Maybe like the ones that cost $1 million. But then you'd have so much pressure on your neck you couldn't walk, right? It's like walking with like 40 pounds around your neck. You can't do it. You could do it for a while, but you're going to be sore, right? Senator says Savannah Guthrie called him before calling the police about her missing mom. So why would you call Senator Mark Kelly first, before the cops? There's something really suspicious about this whole thing. And if the mother's on meds that she needs desperately, she hasn't had her meds in over a week. I think she's probably dead. Now they're saying that they raided a house nearby, that the sheriff was keeping... There's allegations that the sheriff was keeping the FBI out of the investigation, so something's going on here. The first call I said should have been to the police. Does she have a senator's number on speed dial? I guess she does. Mamdani cites the Quran and quotes Muhammad while announcing order to protect illegal aliens from ICE. I wrote, I'm already tired of this person and they just started. We don't care about your religion. Lead the city. Yeah, your religion should have nothing to do with it. Lead the city. Lead. And this is somebody who obviously doesn't know how to lead, right? It's not something you could just learn. You either have the ability to lead men and women and people or you don't, right? Most people just don't have the ability to do it. It's not inherent in most people, unfortunately, to be a great leader. It's... First of all, to be a great leader, you need to be respected. And usually respect comes with some age, right? This guy's, 30-something years old? Hasn't not done much in his life yet to earn that respect. He doesn't speak from a place of respect when he speaks to others a lot of times. He tries to speak down on us and that we've been doing it all wrong and here's the way you have to do it. Really? Okay, well, let's see. Do something then. All I've heard you say is you can't do any stuff, and that you're going up to Albany begging for money already, when you just got in office. The first thing this guy does is go up to Albany begging for more money from the state, and the state's not going to give it to you, and neither is Trump. Small Business Administration suspends 111,620 California borrowers suspected of $8.6 billion fraud. The agency will pursue criminal referrals regarding the $8.6 billion fraud with the Department of Justice. You know, this goes back to the COVID stuff, too. There was a massive amount of illegalities that went on around COVID, right? With scams, with the COVID loans for these businesses that didn't have to pay back. You know, there were a lot of businesses that didn't need those loans that took them anyway because they're like, hey, I don't have to pay this back. There was a lot of scams that went on with the COVID stuff that never got properly investigated or dealt with either. France's former culture minister resigns over Epstein-linked tax fraud probe. So you are seeing some people that were on. But here's the bigger thing, the problem with the Epstein stuff, is that the top 25 guys, or 23 I think it is, 23 of these people made a deal already, right? They either settled for cash and had the people sign multiple NDAs to never speak about it, right? So their names are never going to come out. And that's 20-something people. You don't think those are the top biggest names? Of course, I do. Probably the worst of the worst are in those group because they have the money to do it. They have the money to settle people like Gates and stuff. So their names are never going to come out for the worst stuff. Now you got Lutnick saying, well, I was there just for a lunch for like an hour with my wife and other people's wives. Yeah, but you still went there. And how do we know you stayed for an hour? What if you stayed for days? What if you got some beef jerky and you gave it to your kids? Telling them, yeah, it's beef jerky. I never liked beef jerky. I never ate beef jerky, thankfully. I forgot to include the email from Epstein to Peter Thiel where he tells him he represents the Rothschilds now, right? Remember that email surfaced also where he's talking to Peter Thiel and he says, I don't know if you're aware, but I'm an agent of the Rothschilds. In other words, he's an agent of the Rothschilds that was also what's known as... I'll think of it in a second. You know, he's one of those people, right? He's a watchdog for them. He's somebody that is working. He's an agent of, right? He's one of the agents of them. And that's why he wasn't touched also, because he's high up the chain. He can procure certain things. He has compromise on other people. He can procure things that are hard to find, right? Underage girls, drugs, weaponry. And he's also apparently fairly gifted with moving around money and creating mechanisms to clean money, right? Which is what a lot of these people are interested in ever since they're doing, well, before Iran-Contra. But a lot of this is about how do I clean a lot of money that the CIA is making by importation of cocaine into the United States throughout the 80s period, and probably before. Because you remember their CIA is also doing, like Air America, for instance, during the Vietnam War, where guns and drugs are also being run in between, like Laos and other countries, right? Where did all the profits from that go? Into illicit black bag programs, I'm assuming. So, could you be an agent of the Rothschilds and also some working for some other group like Mossad? Yeah, maybe. Photos have come out that show Epstein allegedly in Israel now with a beard. I don't know if you saw those photos. They're circulating around. The one with the beard and what looks to be two Mossad agents or people who have earpieces in their ears right next to him. Why would they let this guy walk around in public if it is him? And risk being, well, if it is him, and the AI says that that's not a fake photo and it is him, it could be him. It looked like it might be him. Well, if it is him, is he about to come testify and just drop it all? Did he get the deal of deals? Maybe. Because it would have been easy enough for him to hang himself in the cell, right? Because he had the sleep apnea machine was allowed in there. See, that's what no one's talking about. The sleep apnea machine was in the cell. It's got obviously has an electrical cord that plugs into the wall. He could have hung himself with that. That might have held his weight. Now people are saying he was strangled. They're saying that at 10:39 p.m. some kind of orange figure was seen heading towards where his cell was, and that at that hour of the evening nobody should be out who's an inmate. In other words, everyone's locked down by 10:30 at night, usually in that jail. So somebody in an orange jumpsuit shouldn't be walking around anywhere. Was that the guy that they let in the cell to strangle Epstein and kill him? I don't think so. I think he's still alive. It would have been easy enough for them to have a mask, have someone with a mask wheeled out of there, have him with a mask on, make him look like somebody else, who knows. 60% of illegal aliens detained by ICE in Trump's first year back had criminal records. They're criminals and they're not welcome here, the White House said. So 60% of them have a criminal record. That's a lot. More than half, right? So where are we at this point, right? Is the real Trump there? Is he going to step down at some point? I keep hearing rumors that at some point this year, this Trump's going to step down, and it's going to be Vance. Is that going to be after the celebrations of the summer of July 4th? Before? I don't know. After the midterms? Are we finally going to have an election that is real? That is on paper? That it's not co-opted? We'll see. Are we going to have a presidential election? The next presidential election has to be free of all these mechanisms, right? 2 dead bodies were found in the subway within hours in Mamdani's New York City. At least 17 other people have died in the last few weeks during the cold snap. I told you can't do it. And that cold snap was, that's upstate weather. People think it's cold in New York. It's not cold in New York. That's upstate weather. Usually that's like you wake up in, parts of upstate and it could be 5 or 10 degrees on a day with the wind chills in 15 below zero. Yeah. There's people in parts of Russia, they laugh at that. They think that's warm. 5 below is warm to them. Right? There's some cities and parts in Siberia where it can get 70 below zero. 60 below people are living in. I saw this crazy video. These people have their tent is double wrapped with furs and all kinds of stuff, and they got of course inside they got a stove, wood burning stove in there, and they're warm enough even in 50 below zero. They're warm enough because they got the tent is lined with these, with like I don't know, furs from different animals like wolves, I don't know, whatever different creatures they kill, they get and they skin them and they make a massive covering for the tent, and it's actually warm enough in 50 below zero with an opening at the top. No real floor, although they have some flooring they put down, and they could break the tent down in like a couple of hours and put it up in like a couple hours or less. So yeah, a lot of people died. Seven people died in their homes. So in other words, they didn't have enough heat and they froze to death in their house, which should never happen. Once the temperature drops below 50 degrees, your house needs to be kept at, I believe, 65 or 68 degrees. Like my building during that storm was incredibly chilly because they're doing construction on my building, and they left a part of it open in the front, so there's literally wind is just whipping through the building. It's insane. It's just totally illegal. I don't see how people are getting away with what they get away with here, but they are. Bill to prevent sex offender housing in Washington neighborhood blocked by Democrats. Senator Claire Wilson previously called South Hill rapist Kevin Coe a gentleman who did some not very nice things and caused a bit of a stir. Well, if you rape somebody, I think you're causing a little more than a stir. You're destroying somebody's life, usually when you do that, right? It's very difficult to recover from. Why are the Democrats so willing to overlook so much of these people's criminal element that's coming into the country, right? They just don't seem to look at that part of it too strongly, right? All they care about is these people need to vote for us. The Trump administration removes 2,000 unqualified truckers from the roads, many for English proficiency violations. During the 3-day effort, officials and said enforcement teams placed 704 drivers out of service, including nearly 500 for English proficiency violations, which means they don't speak English well enough to even be able to, they shouldn't be doing the job. Don't you have to be an American citizen to get these kinds of licenses in this country? I mean, I don't know any other country on earth where you can just walk in the country illegally and get all these benefits like these people get here, given licenses and everything. I wrote, like I said previously, there are not many jobs these illegal aliens can do for the most part. Giving them driver's licenses when they cannot read English is a danger to us all, especially if they are driving a large vehicle. It's also illegal to give an illegal alien or non-citizen a driver's license in a state they do not live in and have no previous occupancy in. You can't just walk into the New York state, say, hey, I'm an illegal alien, I snuck over the border. Can I get a driver's license so I could work here? No, you shouldn't be allowed to. You don't even have a social security number. How are you going to work here and how are we going to take taxes out of your paycheck? You're not an American citizen. China has reportedly told banks to scale back holdings of U.S. government debt. So what's going on, right, is that somebody is rigging and setting the margin, somebody is rigging the gold and silver market and making it more profitable for people taking physical delivery of silver to sell that silver in Shanghai, where at one point there was a $40 difference or more between the price of silver in the United States and the sale price in Shanghai. So obviously this has been going on for quite some time, where people are getting rich who are shipping their silver out of the United States and the COMEX, taking physical delivery of it here. And the problem with the COMEX here is that it doesn't have the silver to cover anymore if everybody wants physical delivery. They've promised the same bars of silver to so many different people because it's all on just paper contracts that most people never get the physical delivery of. And it's a big problem because what it's going to show is that the COMEX doesn't have the silver in the end. Just like your bank doesn't have all your money. If everybody wants to go to the bank tomorrow and say, "Hey, I just want to take all my money out. I want to keep it in my house, in my safe, or wherever, some other place, another bank, whatever," they're going to tell you they don't have it. And that's what caused the bank runs in like 1907, 1908 was false rumors that the banks don't have your money anymore. You better go get it out now. And then when the banks fail, the big boys come in and they swipe it all up at our pins. And then they say, well, we need central banks. We can't have just these little banks all over the place. We got to have a central bank system where this will stop this from ever happening again. But all those bank runs were just rumors, were caused by the big boys making false rumors about it, right? China is also buying massive amounts of silver and gold, and so is India. They want a lot of silver. Why? Because silver is needed to make all kinds of stuff like solar panels, computers, weapons like Scud missiles and all those missiles they want to make. They need silver for that. Some of these countries require, I think it's like Tesla requires something like 3 million ounces of silver a year just to make the cars he's making. Each one of his cars has, I don't know, 30 grams of silver or more in it, or ounces. I don't know how many ounces of silver each car has. It's a lot. So all these industries need silver, and there's not enough of it for everybody. Right? And now you have countries that want to make sure that they have a lot of silver, and maybe they don't have mines. Well, they're going to want to buy a lot of silver because they need it going forward, and if it's at an attractive low price, they want to buy it there. So that's what the banks were doing to cover their shorts that they had on silver. As it's going up, it's destroying the bank's money. They're hemorrhaging cash because they bet on it to go the wrong way. Brandon Johnson admits Chicago saw a 30% drop in homicides after Trump's crime crackdown. Yeah, we saw a 30% reduction in homicides, shooting victims. Okay, fair enough, but you never dealt with even any of the major gangs that's what's causing most of the gun violence. Did you go in and deal with Crips and Bloods? No. Or smaller offshoot gangs? No. You didn't bust any gangs. I don't think, except maybe some Tren de Aragua. But what about the core group problem in Chicago is not Tren de Aragua, it's Crips and Bloods. And maybe Latin Kings. I don't think Latin Kings have even as strong of a presence in those kinds of cities as, Colombian illegal alien who voted in 2024 election convicted of identity theft, benefit fraud. 59-year-old Lina Maria Orovio Hernandez has illegally resided in the U.S. for more than 2 decades. Yeah, there's people that overstayed their visas that just stay here. I knew people like that who had visas and they just never left. And for some reason, the State Department never follows up on that shit, so you just get to stay here. It's just unbelievable. UK PM is facing calls to resign over the Epstein scandal. I mean, yeah, you're in the freaking guy's house in your underwear with some young underage girl. What are you doing still being in any kind of, Shouldn't you be stepping down? And the stuff's starting to pile up against Trump, but he just keeps ignoring it. So Seattle won the Super Bowl. I had that one wrong. That's why I don't bet on sports. I believe that the United Fur Workers Union was in fact not taken over by organized crime. Although some people from that union did get indicted for something. I don't think it was completely infiltrated by organized crime. The Longshoremen's Union was, and the Garment Workers Union was, which were 2 large unions. The Garment Workers Union, of course, was big in New York. Those in terms of making clothing, right? Those are all the people making clothing. Which a lot of clothes used to be made here in this country beforehand, and not as much brought in and made overseas in China. Now a lot of your clothes, if you look at where your clothes are made, a lot of them, they're made in either China or maybe Vietnam, right? Because it's cheaper for them to make the clothes there and ship it back over here. Something doesn't add up in the Guthrie case. Yeah, something smells funny about it. I think it's possible. My intuition is telling me that someone in her family might have done this. I don't know. There's a brother, there's a couple of other people, maybe. Somebody in their family may be involved in it. And the other thing is that the person they said looked very like amateurish the way they did this, right? So obviously there's something that the person who did it doesn't know what they're doing. The question though is, if she has medicines that she needs to take every day and she's not getting those meds, how long could she survive without those medicines? I'm assuming not too long. Singer announces divorce from Bones producer after he was named in the Epstein's files. So you're seeing some people have to step down. There's some people, like, there is some fallout from it. Super Bowl fans were sickened after translating Bad Bunny's X-rated Spanish lyrics. This is pure degeneracy. I didn't watch the Super Bowl at all. I didn't watch anything. I didn't watch the halftime show. I heard it was really, a lot of people got pissed off. It was all about Puerto Rico. And there was the grass people. There was people like in this grass and freaking Bad Bunny's out there, who's not that big of a star. Why would you make that your name? I'm going to try to be a rock star. I'm going to try to be a big star. What's going to be my name? How about Bad Bunny? That's macho. Most bunnies are not bad. How can a bunny be bad? Most bunnies aren't bad. So a lot of people didn't like the halftime show, which is, I think it's a satanic sort of event every year. I don't watch it. The same thing with the Olympics opening ceremonies. I don't watch that shit. I don't watch any of it. I choose not to interact with it, right? That way it doesn't have any power over me. It's where your attention is where what you give power to, right? So if we just don't ignore that, it doesn't have any power over us. We don't even know it exists. Ghislaine Maxwell pleads the fifth during the Epstein grilling and reveals she'll only talk if Trump frees her. Boom. There's her Trump card. In other words, she's only going to talk if she's given a pardon. Trump's pardoned all kinds of people. He just pardoned the football player Joe Klecko and a bunch of other NFL players who were alleged to have done some illegalities. So she's not going to talk because if she does, she's going to implicate a lot of people, and she knows Trump intimately, and Trump knows that. So I don't think he's not going to pardon her. He'll let her rot in there. That way she can't say anything, and it gets all covered up, right? The last thing they want is for her to speak. Unless he can work out a deal. Okay, I'll pardon you. You forget all the shit I did and just implicate all the other people like Epstein and all the others, right? And forget all the shit I did. Police probe claims Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shared confidential information from his role as UK's trade envoy with Jeffrey Epstein. If he did that, that's a bigger crime, right? Shanghai just broke the silver market, 130 versus 83. $47 difference between Shanghai and the COMEX in the US. That was several days ago, but that shouldn't be, right? In other words, somebody's making a fortune by clearing out the silver from the United States COMEX and shipping it overseas to China and selling it there. And they're making $47 per ounce. So imagine if you're some whale and you just got 20 million ounces of silver. Wouldn't you want to sell it in Shanghai? I would. Do the math. What's 20 million times 47? It's a lot more that's going to be at, what's 20 million at times 130 as opposed to 20 million times 83? It's a lot different. Police probe claims Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shared confidential info from his role as UK's trade envoy with Epstein. That's a double up, sorry. Let me delete that one. Epstein's secret UK girlfriend messaged him about having his child and sent him an article about descendants of slaves saying where to find new help. emails reveal. So we know that Epstein had several, at least one or two, more than one child with some of these women. The question is where those children go, what happened to them. These guys aren't really the best genetic stock. They might be good genetic stock in terms of their mental acuity, but most of them physically aren't good mental stock. Most of them aren't physically good genetic stock. No. Does Bill Gates look particularly like good genetic stock, a physical genetic stock to you? No. Neither does Epstein. Neither does any of them. What, Elon Musk? No, he's overweight, he's out of shape, he's pudgy. Hundreds of Iranian protesters are dragged into TV studios and filmed confessing, with some sentenced to death as regime ramps up brutal clampdown. The rumors I'm hearing that are coming out of Iran is that it's not like 20,000 people that got killed, it's more like 50,000 people. And that they're using facial recognition, phone lines, phone records, texts, emails to further crack down on people. I'm hearing that they're going into the hospitals and killing people in there, allegedly. So, all that crap that Trump was talking about, yeah, they're going to stop the hanging of that one guy. I don't think so, man. How can you prove that? Has anyone seen that kid? What about the other tens of thousands of people that are alleged dead? And it looks like that's the only way that they could stop that uprising was to kill that many people and have armed guys walking down the streets, basically. Private Caribbean island once owned by Shakira hits the market for £22 million. This is a fairly large island as well. Chick-fil-A customer shares major regrets after giving nuggets to his dog, opened a can of worms. The dog, after eating this shit one time, is hooked on it, addicted, and wants it over and over, wants it bad. And that begs the question that he's not asking is, what the hell is in this shit? What's in this stuff that it has my dog acting this way after one serving? Well, this guy already did a thing on Chick-fil-A. He didn't wanted to see what it's made out of, so he took the chicken nuggets and he sent it to a lab, and apparently it's all kinds of crap in there that shouldn't be. It's worse than McDonald's chicken McNuggets. That's why you get addicted to it. It's got all these chemicals and shit in there that you get addicted to. It's not just chicken, in other words. It's not just a chicken nugget that you could make, right? Without all the other crap. And just deep fry it, and it would just be that. No, it's something else. There's other crap in there. That's why these people go crazy for it. Rep. Lou says Epstein files have allegations of Trump raping and threatening to kill children. Yeah, that's in there. Right? About the girl that was forced to give oral sex to Trump and then she bit him and then she was beaten. This other child alleges something even worse that Trump did to him and that he did to Trump. So you'll have to listen to that video. I'm not going to go into it anymore. There's allegations out there. There's multiple allegations out there against Trump now. More than 2. And I've already gone over them in great detail. New York Post. Watch Ghislaine Maxwell plead the fifth during her deposition. You can watch that. There doesn't really seem to be any need to. She just keeps saying the same thing over and over. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. People plead the fifth when their answer may tend to incriminate them. That's the last part of that. When you plead the fifth, that's the last part of that sentence that most people leave out, right? They don't want to say that part. I'm pleading the fifth because my answer may tend to incriminate me in a court of law. And I'm in a court of law now, so I don't want to self-incriminate myself, so I'd rather not say anything. Which is why you have what's called the right to remain silent when you read your Miranda rights. If you ever read your Miranda rights, the best thing you could do is keep silent. Even if you're innocent or guilty, it doesn't matter. Keep silent. Because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, which means that we're not going to think about it. We're going to use it. And that's why all the cops have you surveilled the second you get in a police car. There's a camera on you because whatever you say is recorded. So be careful what you say. It's probably best to say nothing. It's not like you're going to talk your way out of the cuffs. Once you're cuffed in a police car and you're told you're under arrest, you're not getting out. Not right then you're not. You got to go get booked into the station. Unless the cop says you're being detained, then you might get out. That's why you need to know what the difference is between being under arrest or being detained. That's two different things, right? Detained means you might be let go if after the police officer does his or her investigation of whatever the event is, right? You might be let go. Or you might not. Lawyer Ghislaine Maxwell will clear Trump and Clinton for clemency. So what's the... What good is that? I mean, that means you'll say anything to get out of jail, right? What do you mean you'll clear Trump? How are you going to clear Trump? There's 3 allegations or 4 against him already. Are you saying those are all fake? How are you going to clear Trump? In other words, what? You'll say whatever you want me to say if you give me a pardon? Of course. I mean, what good would her testimony be after she's pardoned? Are you going to believe anything she says then? No. She's already got everything she wants. She'll say whatever she wants then, right? Epstein jail guards used fake body to trick media waiting outside the prison while pedophile's real corpse was loaded into a van unnoticed, files claim. So what do you mean? You had a fake body there? Well, whose body was that? Cadaver? Like for 9/11? I mean, sorry. Cadaver for, when you teach people CPR? I don't know. What fake body trick? Jail guards overseeing Epstein used a decoy body to mislead reporters gathered outside the prison after his death, while his real corpse was secretly removed in a separate vehicle. The files allege that boxes and sheets were arranged to resemble a human body and loaded into a white van marked as belonging to the office of the chief medical examiner, prompting reporters to follow it as it drove away. Unbeknownst to the media, Epstein's actual body was instead placed into a black vehicle that left the facility unnoticed, allowing officers to transport the corpse. So where did that corpse go after that? We have no proof of, in other words, like you don't even know where that body was. It could have been sent somewhere else. It could have been another body replaced with that body. You just don't know. Could Andrew Mountbatten Windsor go to prison under UK law? How former Prince may end up behind bars as police probe claims he shared trade info with Epstein. You could go to jail for that because you're trading information that's, I'm assuming, classified with an outsider, right? Who may or may not be profiting off that information. Minnesota governor candidate's 22-year-old daughter was found fatally stabbed in her apartment. I just wrote, seems suspicious to me now. He dropped out of the race to succeed Governor Walz. So was this guy's daughter killed on purpose so he dropped out of the race? Possibly. King offers to assist the police in any probe of the former Prince Andrew. Well, he has to do that. I mean, it looks like Prince Andrew's in a lot of trouble. Because all that time that he's going out to these clubs, he's married, right? Or was that after he got divorced? I don't remember. Did he ever divorce his wife? I don't think so. I can't. Yeah, he did, but I think. Ghislaine Maxwell will clear Trump and Clinton for clemency. Seems to me that if she is saying, if you pardon me, I'll help you and tell a story that you are innocent. If not, I won't. But is Trump innocent? My take on that is no, he's not. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi will win supermajority in election. So I believe that that's a woman who was just elected the the Japanese Prime Minister. That's, I think, a first. These Chinese researchers at U.S. universities have CCP ties. They're finding these guys are more Chinese researchers in some schools. Yeah, there's a problem there. The Super Bowl halftime show was literally about erasing America. It didn't look like it was about anything good. So, friends, I got to take a quick break. We're about an hour and 10 minutes in, which is about the normal time I do. So I'm going to try to push hard and not make this a 2.5 hour show. I appreciate you. I hope you're doing well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. I just worked out yesterday, had a great session, did some chest and back. I like to do chest, back, and legs, although those are two big, very dense, heavy body parts, but I like doing it that way. And then I do like bis, tris, legs. So I'm always doing something for legs, just even if it's just, grabbing like a kettlebell and with 50-pound kettlebell, 60-pound, whatever it is, and just doing like 20 knee bends, just something to get your quads moving. I'm trying to tailor my workout more and do sort of more floor work, movements, push-ups, planks, sitting in the pike position, right? Doing stuff like holding your own body weight. You can just do press-ups in your chair even at work, right? You can do a pike from your chair seat at work. Put your legs out, hold your legs out straight in front of you and activate those abs and push yourself up off your chair. It's not easy to do, right? These are things you could do with just your body weight as opposed to lifting heavy weights. So I hope you're doing well. It's warming up here in New York. It's 35 degrees. We're almost all the snow is melting. We've still got some ice, but a lot of it should be gone by the weekend. It's going to be warm here. I think today's going to be 40 something. So actually we're in a warming trend, and I saw the longer term weather for March and April look pretty good for most of the country. Look like warming. Are they going to ever stop these people from weather mod? We'll have to see. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're hanging in there, trying to observe without judgment all the craziness that's happening as we ascend out of the third dimension into the fourth and fifth dimensions. I hope you're well. I'll be right back in one moment. In the meantime, you can do some push-ups, sit-ups, and burpees, and I'll be right back. Thanks, friends. Okay, I'm back. Thanks, friends. I needed that break. I appreciate you. Federal Appeals Court hands Trump a big win and ends protections for illegal aliens from 3 nations. The San Francisco-based Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the federal government would succeed on the grounds that Nome's decision was not arbitrary or capricious. In other words, we have a right to keep illegal aliens out of the country, right? All nations have a right to do that. You don't have to do what Spain did and allow 500,000 people just to waltz right into your country. I really feel for the people in Spain right now. That's going to cause a huge problem. And, I'm seeing a lot of stuff from the UK. Is some of the most disturbing videos I've seen are from the United Kingdom, where you just see these Muslims are working in groups now, and they're just doing stuff that's highly. It's a problem. It's a big problem. They have a huge problem in these countries now going forward. I don't know how they fix it. Trump told Palm Beach police chief, "Thank goodness you're stopping Epstein," called Ghislaine Maxwell evil in 2006 phone call. That's funny because you were just hanging with her right before then, a few years before. How come now all of a sudden you're saying he's a monster? Well, you're connected to him, right? You don't want to have it be seen that you are connected to him, so you got to make it look like you're not connected to him. But meanwhile, we see for years you were letting this guy. And there's this other really creepy dude that if you see when Trump is allowing Epstein into Mar-a-Lago that time, and there's a guy that's coming in with Epstein who towers over Trump, who's 6'3". This guy must have been like 6'10", white guy who I'd never seen before. I don't know who the hell he is. He's also coming into Mar-a-Lago with Epstein. He looks like somebody that could be extraterrestrial because of just the way he looked, and his height was so much bigger than everybody else. He was incredibly tall. And we know that Epstein's tied in with the Rothschilds, which means that Trump's probably tied in with them as well, because somebody was bailing him out of all those casinos every time he would go under. He would get more money, and most times you don't get more money when you go bankrupt that many times. At some point, nobody's going to loan you money anymore. Winter Olympic athletes fight against fossil fuel while using gear and travel reliant on petroleum. Do as I say, not as I do. A petition signed by thousands of people, including Olympic athletes, claims that fossil fuels are killing winter sports, quote unquote, and demands that the International Olympic Committee study if sponsorships from petroleum companies are appropriate. Despite much winter gear and apparel being made from petroleum and the fact that the athletes fly to events on gas-guzzling jets, those facts seem to be ignored. Right, and I said any of your ski gear made with plastic, and much of it is a petroleum product, right? What do you think plastic is? It's a petroleum product. That's why they created it. How can we make even more money on this stuff that we don't have any use for? Called gasoline, right? Which is a byproduct of oil. When they're processing the oil, right? It's part of that process creates gasoline. So they said, well, let's make a car that runs on that so we can make more money. Let's make products and plastics and things from this stuff that we can even make even more money on. And then some of the pills you're taking are actually petroleum. Right? Some of those pill casings are plastic, right? Any of your ski gear's made, what do you think your plastic skis are made of? Some of it's plastic. The poles are, some of it's plastic. Some of your clothes are made, So you're protesting fossil fuels. Meanwhile, you're in an industry that go back to wood skis, right? Why don't you go back to wood skis then? The original skis were not made out of plastics, right? They're made out of wood. Try skiing on those. Well, the original surfboards, I think, were also wood, right? Trump's campaign CEO's little-known World of Warcraft career. Wired covered Bannon's career in gaming back in 2008. And Bannon is connected to who? Who is he doing the long interview with? Why is he interviewing Epstein? Like they're like buddies, right? Judge blocks California's law mandating federal agents remove masks. A law requiring law enforcement officers to wear identification was enforceable, the judge found. Yeah, it's one thing you want to ask my badge number and my name, but if you're trying to dox me, I should be, there's certain people that, like, say, in the CIA are allowed to wear disguises as well, right, when they're doing their work, and they're allowed to be secretive about what they're doing and who they are. Then why aren't you allowing these guys to, who have people looking to dox them and their families and possibly do them harm? Bombshell new doc show Trump called police about Epstein in 2006. I wrote, are we supposed to ignore the entire 90s decade where they were seen together, dozens of times probably hanging out, or at least half a dozen parties that they were at together, and who knows how many other private meetings went on? British PM's grip on power collapsing in real time as Epstein's scandal engulfs his administration? Yeah, you're done. Well, we got pictures of you in your underwear with some woman who may or may not be underage. In Epstein's house, apparently. Or over there in Europe, in England. New York becomes the 13th state to legalize assisted suicide. So now if you don't want to check out in New York, it's nice and easy. Just go check out. Get the clearance and you want to check out, check out. Most people don't need to check out with the state assisting you, though. If people are going to do it, they'll do it on their own. And of course, I'm not saying to do that. I would say fight back against that instinct at all costs. I was suicidal for years. I wanted to check out so bad because I couldn't find any peace or an answer to my problem. And it was only at that point that I realized I had to go inside, come back outside, and then go back inside again. Right? You need to go inside to heal the problems that you have, whatever that is, whatever your issues are, whatever karma is surfacing now to be cleared, whatever whatever connections you have to certain events of your past need to be severed if they're damaging to you. And you can do that very easily, really, just with your intent to sever yourself energetically from the incident. But usually that is done with forgiveness, is the best way I found to do it, which is there's a freedom in forgiveness, right? We've talked about where, when you forgive all the people that you feel have hurt you in the past, whether that's your parent or a boyfriend, girlfriend, somebody that may have hurt you, attacked you, whatever it is, forgive that person and send love to that person if possible, because when you do that, you are cutting the energetic tie that binds you to that incident. And you can do that in your mind by just literally picturing it as an energetic binding that it's around you to that incident or person, and just cutting it with a theoretical scissors, not a real scissors, obviously, but a fake scissors that's just an energetic scissors, right, in your mind. And as you cut those incidents away and you cut off the friends that maybe were frenemies and weren't being real friends to you, and you move on in your life, there's a freedom there. The longer that we keep anger in our heart and hatred and things of this, the low vibrational energies, the harder it's going to be for us to on our ascension process. If we're all connected, then if you are suffering, then I'm suffering. If you're not at peace, I'm not at peace. And we all need to be at ease at all times, but it's not easy to do. Not in a chaotic world like this that we're living in, where there's constant crazy, incidents happening every day. Some are real and some are not. The interesting thing that Kimberly Gogan was talking about was that there's all kinds of continents and things that we can't see, and like places that aren't energetically visible to us yet, but that as our vibrations rise, they will become visible. I remember people talking about the cities in the sky and things like that, and I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I can't see any cities up in the sky right now. Well, you might if you're vibrating at the proper, maybe in 5D, that's what there is, right? We don't know. Because we've never been to 5D, most of us. Cuomo's getting a radio show instead of prison. Andrew Cuomo. There's a two-tiered justice system, right? This guy did all kinds of stuff. He steered old elderly back into the nursing homes where a lot of them got sick and died to make the COVID death numbers look more bad, right? We know he did that. And other crimes. And he's free. There really is a two-tiered. It's really a three-tiered justice system. Ultra-processed food manufacturers ran the big tobacco playbook to addict consumers. Yep. They got you addicted to high sugar, high corn syrup, high fructose corn syrups, right? Things like that. And all kinds of other crappy chemicals that they're throwing into your food that don't need to be there. They got you. They got you big, fat, and lazy, right, is what they did. Hooked on a lot of chemicals, hooked on cigarettes, alcohol, sugar. All bad for you, really. All bad. Lutnick said he visited Epstein's private island with his wife and children. So you were just there for an hour, right? Okay, whatever. You're on a paradise island with the private beaches and all this, and you're just going to stay for lunch for an hour? I find that hard to believe. Although he's alleging he was on another tour that was leaving, and he was just stopping by as he passed through or whatever, had some free time. All right, what'd you talk about? Kurt Cobain's death was a homicide, now they're saying. Shocking new forensic investigation questions the suicide ruling. I thought he blew his brains out with a shotgun. Which is not the easiest way to do it, right? Ari at Home just came out. Back to It live stream. That was one of the, I think, top 5. He had Dovidas came on from internet fame. I don't know if you ever watched Dovidas. He does something like similar to what Ari does. He loops guitar riffs and different good music. He makes songs the same way sort of Ari does, but he doesn't have a mobile rig. He has, his rig is like he stays where in one spot. But man, Dovidas was killing it. He shredded on 2 different songs he did with Ari, so it was a good stream. There was a violin player, a lot of different kinds of music. It was a good stream. Good positive vibrations coming out of that, right? FAA closes El Paso airspace for 10 days over special security reasons. There was some drones going around El Paso, right? And they can't explain where the drones were coming from. Was that cartel related? Maybe. Bitcoin transferred into an account associated with Nancy Guthrie ransom. So there was Bitcoin transferred into an account for her. For the person, apparently. Excuse me. Grand jury refuses to indict 6 Democratic lawmakers Trump accused of seditious behavior. New York Post. Somebody attacked Mick Jagger's fiancée, Melanie Hamrick. She's left shaken and heartbroken after being physically attacked in Mayfair. So you need to have your awareness about you, right? Like I said, situational awareness. Yeah, I mean, there's parts of England now where they have these guys hanging around, and they're not up to anything good. They're attacking certain people. They're harassing people. All the most disturbing redacted emails in the Epstein files as fury grows over why the names are hidden. Because the top 23 guys who settled, you're never going to know who they were. So the biggest crime, the people that probably got indicted who had the most to lose, right? And the people that were around this guy the most, who raped the most women, who did the worst stuff, they're not going to get touched, and they're not going to get named, and they're going to their money will keep them safe. And Trump is alleged to have settled more than one lawsuit against them in that way, so that the information never comes out. That's part of how they settle, right? You got to sign an NDA. You can't speak about it. U.S. slips to 29th place in Global Corruption Perception Index. Yeah, we're pretty corrupt. We're one of the most corrupt nations in the world. There's so many different scams running in this place at the same time that, it's just known as a place where you can come, sneak in, get benefits for free, you can do scams, and get away with it. Canadian mining company's employees found deceased in Mexico. So I don't know if that had anything to do with silver and gold or not, maybe. If non-citizens never vote, why ban ICE from polling places? Right. Because non-citizens are voting. We already have proven that they are. We found non-citizens have been caught already voting in past elections. In fact, if you go back to the, gangs in New York period, it was Irish gangs mostly that were controlling the, who most of whom were not from this country, who were ended up controlling the voting process at one point. It wasn't just Bill's people, right? It was the Irish too. They needed to control the Irish vote as the Irish poured into the United States and became a larger voting bloc. Their votes became more coveted, especially in New York in the 5 points. If you remember, Bill's asking not just Cuddy, but the Dead Rabbits gang, hey, can you get us all the Irish votes? We need all the Irish votes, not some of them. Big Left is freaking out as illegal alien student enrollment plummets. Yeah, you got to self-deport. There shouldn't be any illegal alien students. You shouldn't be able to enroll in a school if you're not an American citizen. How do you get through the enrollment process? Where do you say your address is? Like Chile or something? Like Mexico? You got to be from this country to enroll in a school here. And why should our New York schools take in kids who don't even speak English in already overcrowded classrooms in public schools? Your kid's not going to get an education. He can't even speak English. He'll never be able to catch up. He or she, unless they're very good at language and pick it up quick, which some kids do. Disney without gay days? The Pride machine shows its first cracks. I said, why should any one group get a special day? It's like making their African American Day at Disney World. You can't do that, right? What do you mean I can't come in? Here's one for you. A new bagel store opened up in my neighborhood, right? So I decided I'll be a nice guy. I'll go get a couple bagels from them, right? I'll support the new business that opened up in my neighborhood. So I walk in. I say, hey, how you doing? It looks great, the business. Congratulations. Can I get 2 everything bagels? And you know what the girl tells me? Sorry, you have to buy 3 bagels at once here. We only do 3 at a time. I go, really? I go, what if I want, so you're telling me all the people that are going to walk in here who want 1 bagel with cream cheese or 2 bagels, you're going to tell them that you're going to turn them away? I go, you're going to be losing a ton of money. And I said, so I just walked out. I said, I don't want 3 bagels. I want 2 bagels. I'm going to go to the other bagel store that I've been going to, and I'm never coming back in here. Bye. You just lost a customer for life because you won't sell me 2 bagels instead of 3. How stupid is that? It makes no sense. It's the same thing as making a gay day. Why should there be a special day for any one group? This park is for everybody, not just one group of people. You know why they do stuff like that? It's a separating event. Now these people are not part of you. They're gay. They're not part of the rest of society. Let's make a special day just for them. Doesn't work like that, man. The park is for everybody. It's just like a New York public park. You can't say, hey, this park is only for white people today. It doesn't work like that. Although communities tried to do that in the past. Right? Where they segregated people and they said, hey, you can't use this water fountain. You got to use a special water fountain. You can't sit at the same tables as we sit at. You got to sit in different restricted areas. That's a way to separate us as society, not bring us together. We need to come together. Mexican cartel drones disabled after forcing El Paso airspace closures. Some of these drones came out of nowhere. What were they doing? Who knows? Did you catch all the MK Ultra moments at the Super Bowl? That's why I don't watch it. I don't want to get triggered by this shit. It's horrible. The United States seizes 134 acres in Texas used by Mexican cartel. They thought they were untouchable. It's the latest seizure authorized by Treasury sanctions. In a message to cartels, authorities said, we are dismantling your operations from the ground up. So this is one thing they are doing more of. Zorro Mamdani asked New York State lawmakers for a 2% tax hike on the wealthy. Doesn't make any sense. You can't just tax more. Some people, right, raise their taxes and not raise everybody else's taxes. This is already one of the most heavily taxed states in the country, especially if you make a lot of money. So if you're going to hike those people's taxes 2% more, they'll just leave. Like I said, they'll go to Florida, they'll go to Texas or Arizona where there's a much more advantageous tax system for them. You're seeing it happen already with Elon Musk with Tesla's moving. Some other big corporations are moving to different states. They're leaving California, they're leaving blue states. I wrote, this is not the way to fix a budget gap. It will further hurt investment in the state, right? Because now rich people won't come here anymore. They still will because New York real estate is worth so much money. Especially Manhattan real estate is a great place to park your wealth for years it's been. Where you're pretty sure it's not going to depreciate in value. It's going to appreciate, go up, right? You know, if you buy a condo, on the E60s by near Central Park, you can probably guess that in a couple of years it might be worth more, right? If it's right off Central Park, it's a highly desired area. A lot of people pay a lot of money to live right by Central Park. You can't fix the budget gap deficit by taxing certain groups more. It's not going to work like that. You need to go through every city agency, find all the rot and all the money that was stolen, and find it if you can. If it hasn't already been laundered, and there's billions of dollars being stolen through this system every year. Ex-Prince Andrew's gushing emails to Epstein begging to be allowed to stay in his homes after sex offender was released from jail. So this is after everybody knew who he was. This guy's still begging to come over and hang. And he did come over and hang. Right? He came over for 8 or 9 days. He hung out at the mansion. He's even seen answering the door, allowing young women entrance to the mansion. That's why I said he got caught. That's how he got caught, because he was answering the door at Epstein's house. And some of the paparazzi were out there, and when one of the girls came over, he opened the door and he's like talking to her, and they clipped a photo of him. He made a big mistake. New York City's Greenwood Cemetery will soon offer corpse composting option that returns bodies to the earth. So they're going to turn your grandma into compost right there in the freaking cemetery if you want. That's disgusting. Because that means they got to chop her up into pieces like, in one of those chipper machines or something like that, right? They're going to put grandma in the wood chipper? I mean, what are they doing? Do you really want that? I don't think so. Although a lot of people think, well, once you die, the life force leaves the body, the meat suit. It's just a meat suit, and that's true. Once the soul leaves the body, it's the body. What happens to the body? It dissolves away over time, right? It rots until just the bones are left, right? Not if we got the med beds, though. We don't have to die. You could live as long as you want to live until you want to check out on your own time. Maybe then you can. What if you could live 500 to 1,000 years? Would you want to live it that long? If every, say, 60 years or 40, 50 years or 30 years, you'd go revitalize your body, go back, once you turn 40 or 50, you go back and revitalize down to 30 again, just always be perfect. Sounds good to me, man. Aging isn't that much fun. It's not easy. South Korea raids spy agencies in probe of alleged North Korean drone case. New York's winter shows that Mamdani's not a socialist but a devout Muslim. Well, he didn't exactly do they did make some mistakes. They make these big mounds of snow when they're, scooping it up, and I get it, but you got to break those big mounds up and push it into the street where it'll melt down quicker on warm days. That's what they used to do. Now they just make these big mountains and let it sit there, and of course it's going to take forever to melt like that. Jeffrey Epstein's silver squeeze plan explained. So this is where it gets interesting, right? Because one of these guys, let's watch a little bit of this because it got interesting, where they were talking about silver and silver trusts and all kinds of stuff that's connected to Epstein, and this is where it gets interesting. Let's watch John O.G. a little bit.
I need to tell you something that I found in the Epstein files. And I need you to understand that what I am about to show you is not a conspiracy theory. It is not speculation. It is a real email from a real person sent to Jeffrey Epstein on a real date with real attachments that was buried in millions of pages of documents.
So just real quick, this is from Anderson Bernard. It's to Jeffrey Epstein with CCs to other people with CCs to other redacted names. The subject is power of attorney, Silver Saint Tropez, or TROPEZ. And there's attachments. Brochure Villa Saint Tropez, Financial Trust Company Inc., POA External AM, Pro CN News Doc, Pershimco Resources, PERSHIMCO Resources Doc, Silver Company's document, PowerPoint, March 2011 technical presentation, Silver Executive Summary Doc. So there's bunches of different things that looks like he's looking into silver. This is back in Friday, May 27th, 2011 email.
Documents released by the United States Department of Justice. And it is about silver. Let me give you the context first, because the timing of this is insane. In November 2025, the Epstein Files Transparency Act was signed into law. It required the DOJ to release all unclassified records related to Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Since January 2026, the DOJ has released over 3.5 million pages. 3.5 million. That includes emails, bank statements, wire transfer records, FBI interview summaries, flight logs, and portfolio statements. The entire world has been focused on the political names in these files. Presidents, princes, billionaires, tech moguls, and rightly so. But while everyone was looking for the famous names, I was looking at the financial documents. Because that is what I do on this channel. I follow the money. And what I found in those financial documents stopped me cold. I have been covering the silver market on this channel for weeks now. Vault drains, supply chain wars, leverage flushes, the whole picture. But when I came across this document, I had to stop everything I was doing. Because this email, sent in May of 2011, contains a silver squeeze thesis that is so accurate, so precise, and so eerily predictive of what is happening right now in 2026 that it made every hair on my body stand up. And right next to that email, there's a JP Morgan portfolio statement showing that Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman currently sitting in a prison cell for sex trafficking, was buying millions of shares of a silver mining company at the exact same time. Welcome to the hidden economy. Hit subscribe if this is your first time here. I cover what mainstream financial media refuses to touch. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching this video from, because I need to know how many of you are watching the files as closely as I am. If you have been following this series, you know I do not make claims. It was sent by a man named Bernard to an email address associated with.
So this is the email. Now we know that Ghislaine is buying mining shares, silver mining shares, back in 2011.
Jeffrey Epstein. The subject line reads, Power of Attorney Silver Saint-Tropez. Already, that subject line alone should make you pause. Power of Attorney Silver Saint-Tropez in one line. This is not a casual email between friends. This is a financial manager communicating with his client about account management and investment strategy. Bernard tells Jeffrey that he is leaving his position at a Swiss private bank called Valardis. This is not a regular bank. This is the kind of bank that manages money for people whose net worth starts at 9 figures. He needs Jeffrey to sign a power of attorney on something called financial trust before the end of the month, so Bernard can keep managing the account. In other words, this man is so embedded in Epstein's financial life that even when he changes jobs, the first thing he does is make sure he can keep controlling the money. That is the relationship. Now pay attention to what comes next. Bernard writes, and I quote, I've also enclosed some research I made on the silver market, and I am fully convinced that a squeeze is possible if one can take delivery of 100% of the futures contract. Let me read that again. A squeeze is possible if one can take delivery of 100% of the futures contract. In 2011, a financial advisor to Jeffrey Epstein is writing a detailed thesis about how to squeeze the silver market by taking physical delivery of all the futures contracts on COMEX. And he is not guessing. He enclosed research. The email had attachments. A silver executive summary document, a CME position limits PDF, research on silver companies. This was not a casual mention. This was a structured investment thesis being presented to one of the most connected financial operators in modern history. But it gets deeper. Bernard continues. He writes that the squeeze caused by the 5 increases in margin requirements only squeezed the weak hands. Stop right there. If you watched my video on the silver crash, you know exactly what this means. In 2011, silver ran from around $17 to almost $50. Then the CME raised margin requirements 5 times. 5 times. And the price crashed. Sound familiar? Because in 2026, silver ran from 37 to 121. And what happened? Margins got raised from 5% to 8 to 11 to 15 to 18%.
Right, so they did the same exact thing again to keep it down. But my point is that this guy's talking about doing this. He's talking about cornering the silver market back in 2011. And he's showing him how to do it, this guy, Bernard, right? He's saying all you need to do is you have to have all the contracts. You got to get them all, which is almost impossible to do unless you need to have a large bank behind you or somebody with an incredible amount of money, right?
And the price crashed to 64. The exact same playbook, 14 years apart. And Bernard identified it in real time in 2011. He called it what it was, a flush of the weak hands, not a fundamental change, a mechanical liquidation. Then he makes his predictions. He says silver without undue speculation will end the year at $60. He says the inflation-adjusted value is $150. And he says the gold to silver ratio will fall from 40 to under 20 within 36 months. I need to pause here and explain why these numbers matter, because if you are new to silver, you might not understand how radical these predictions were in 2011. Silver had just crashed from $50 to $32. Every analyst on Wall Street was saying the silver bubble had popped. Every headline was calling silver investors delusional. The mainstream narrative was that silver would go back to $15 and stay there. And in the middle of all that noise, this man is writing to Jeffrey Epstein saying the inflation-adjusted value is $150. He was not following the crowd. He was analyzing the fundamentals, the supply deficit, the industrial demand, the monetary properties, the futures market mechanics.
All right, you can watch the rest of that at your leisure. It's a really interesting play, but it looks like that they were trying to figure out how to corner the silver market back then, and they failed. Because it's almost impossible to get all the contracts. You'd have to have the COMEX or somebody like that be in on it with you as well. I think that might be part of the title of this particular video. It could be Epstein Silver Squeeze ? Is that what's going on now? Watchdog says Fulton County had more votes without ballots than Biden's win, which is impossible, right? You can't have more votes than there are people in the county, or that there are that he needed to win, right? House passes the SAVE Act to require voters to show ID. I guess what kind of ID is important? Zoran Mamdani spews head-scratching reason why he wants to hike New York City taxes. Most expensive city. It already is the most expensive city to live, to apart. The rents here are some of the highest in the world, especially in Manhattan. The price of food is very expensive here. Everything is like double what it used to be like 3 or 4 years ago. Another illegal New York City encampment flourishes in the Bronx with toilets emptied into the streets. Yeah, these people are living in campers all over the street. They just take over whole blocks. They're surrounding parks in different areas. Princess Sophia of Sweden breaks silence on Epstein encounters after GOJ file release. You're in trouble. All these royals are in trouble. Mystery woman sprawled on floor under Andrew Mountbatten Windsor in Jeffrey Epstein's New York mansion is a sex trafficking victim. So she was a victim. We're not sure if she's drugged at that point on the floor. She's conscious. What's going on? Is it just a joke? Apparently she wasn't willingly there. State Department reveals ties between leftist groups like Code Pink and CCP influence operations. The State Department will pursue complete transparency for the donor and NGO networks that lobby for our adversaries and seek to weaken the resolve of the United States. Well, this should have been done a long-ass time ago. His first term should have rooted all this out. Illegal alien crashes car into ICE vehicle in dangerous attempt to resist arrest in St. Paul, Minnesota. Alexander Romero Avila of Honduras reportedly ran red traffic lights before pummeling his vehicle. How do all these people get cars so easily, right? It's not easy to get a car. It's expensive. How are they all getting cars and apartments and jobs? And Watchdog says Fulton County had more votes without ballots than Biden's win. I think I doubled that up. Trump directs Pentagon to purchase coal-fired electricity. Why would you want to do that? That's the worst kind of electricity. Why wouldn't you say build the Tesla towers? No, he doesn't want to do that. He wants to keep enriching the petroleum infrastructure and the coal infrastructure and the nuclear infrastructure. I wrote, coal is one of the dirtiest methods of creating electricity. Why isn't Trump releasing 0-point free energy or making Tesla towers that would allow for free energy and the beaming of energy to different parts of the country, plus free phone? Why won't he implement these things? Because it's going to hurt these other industries like the coal companies and the oil companies. He doesn't want to put them out of business. But eventually they all have to go out of business. Guilty. First anti-ICE agitator to have case brought to trial is convicted for criminal offenses committed at Portland ICE facility. David Pearl, 35, of Portland, Oregon, was convicted Tuesday for creating a disturbance at the ICE facility and failing to obey a lawful order. This guy got no jail, 1 year probation, that's it, for attacking a facility. Well, they say creating a disturbance, he didn't attack it. You know, that's a misdemeanor charge. Right? Created a public disturbance, that's nothing. He's on 1 year of probation, no jail. Evanston, Illinois gives $25,000 each to 44 black residents in reparations. The city has previously pledged to award $10 million over 10 years to black residents. Well, what about the rest of the state? What about all the other African American residents in the state of Illinois? It's not just Evanston. They're probably scratching their heads saying, "Where's my 25 large?" What do you mean? Why is just the people of Evanston getting this check? What about, I'm in Chicago. I'm in this part of the state. I'm in this city. I'm in this town. Why don't I get the money? See how fake this all is? Senator Mitch McConnell was released after the 1 week in the hospital, so he made it out? Or did they just replace Mitch with a new clone? I don't know. So the Ring of Fire eclipse is coming in 3 days. They say that's the fire horse, that's the year of the fire horse. Once the fire horse energy comes in, that's going to change a lot of stuff, they're saying. I can feel the energy changing. It's physically changing us. U.S. Treasury sets regulatory framework for Venezuelan oil operations. We still can't see where the money is going that the U.S. is taking from selling Venezuela's oil. We're not aware of the mechanism that is being used. How is that going back into the Venezuelan banks, or how is that money being dealt with? Who's dealing with that money? New York skies have been clear for many days. No chemtrails. That's good news. I haven't seen chem since that big storm. They had to use a lot of chem to make that big storm. That freezing that froze half the country. They had to use a lot of their energy to do that. Allegations of bodies buried at Epstein's New Mexico ranch prompt investigation. This is from a local news agency. It's not from some offshoot. It was I'm going to play the clip. It's only 3 minutes long. It's from KOAT News, Channel 7. New Mexico, Channel 7 News.
Billions of pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, providing more information on the convicted sex offender's crimes. Among the files, claims bodies are buried near Epstein's Zorro Ranch in Santa Fe County. Tonight, the state land commissioner demanding an investigation.
I'm going to keep asking questions and keep poking around until I get an answer.
Those coming from an anonymous email in 2019 addressed to a local radio host.
Aaliyah Chavez spoke with him and has the details of that email.
Yeah, Doug, Shelley, we're also hearing tonight from the Attorney General's office, who says it takes these allegations seriously but needs more information to do something about it. Eddie Aragon says it was early in the morning in November 2019 when he got this email from someone claiming they were a former staffer at Zorro Ranch, writing, "Did you know somewhere in the hills outside of the Zorro, 2 foreign girls were buried on orders of Jeffrey and Madam G. Both died by strangulation during rough fetish sex."
I got the email. I was startled.
The emailer says they had 7 sex videos, including some with minors, but never actually sent the footage, asking Aragon for digital currency Bitcoin.
Approximately at that time, Bitcoin was worth about $8,000. They wanted in exchange 1 Bitcoin for the videos that they had in possession.
Aragon says he didn't know what to do with the email, so he sent it to the FBI.
I've since referred to the FBI on a number of other things, and I've never heard back from them on anything.
Fast forward 6 years later, the DOJ released Aragon's email as part of the Epstein files.
Matters. I think that New Mexicans need answers. I think the victims need answers.
That's what prompted New Mexico Public Lands Commissioner Stephanie Garcia Richard to send this letter to the Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney's Office Tuesday, asking them to thoroughly investigate this disturbing allegation regarding the referenced burials.
We need to get to the bottom of really what happened in New Mexico.
She says she was horrified to learn in 2019 that our state was still leasing lands around Zorro Ranch to Epstein's company.
I canceled the leases at that time.
A month after Epstein killed himself in jail, the land around the mansion totals around 1,200 acres and hasn't been leased out since.
We're thinking to possibly turn it into a memorial to honor the victims, or as some kind of wildlife sanctuary, perhaps. So that's.
The question is, why was the state leasing out land around Epstein's Zorro Ranch? And here's the other interesting part. Right after the initial indictment of Epstein, a trust that that deals with Zorro Ranch, something connected to the trust won the state lotto and won a $29 million lotto prize. Some entity connected to that Epstein Zorro Ranch. So did they rig the election and give that money to Epstein as extra money to help him when he gets arrested for the initial crimes in 2009 or whenever that is?
That's what we're thinking for that land.
Attorney General Raul Torres' office responding to Garcia Richard hours later with this letter. As we understand it, the allegations appear to be unsubstantiated, it says, going on to say they will work to obtain the original files. Once such information is obtained, our office will review it to determine whether any further action is warranted, and if so, the appropriate next steps.
To my knowledge, no investigation has taken place thus far. It doesn't sound like anything is going to be taking place very soon.
The commissioner says she's ready to offer all state land for investigation, but can't do anything about the ranch since it's privately owned, bought by New.
It's privately owned now. Some other entity bought it. I just wanted to cover that story because I think it's interesting, although I don't think it's true because this guy seems like he's careful, right? He wouldn't just bury somebody on his own property somewhere where it could lead back to him. He would probably just have some disposal method that would be more, I don't know, thorough than that. But maybe it could be that it happened early on and when he's had the ranch, who knows? And they can't get onto the property to even check, it appears, unless they get some kind of a search warrant. Ilhan Omar eviscerated for suggesting Trump is a pedophile and should be executed. Keep her mouth shut. But I think she's actually, that might be one thing she's right about. If this guy's testimony is correct. This guy's testimony was so crazy, and what he said he did to Trump was so crazy, that Trump had to be life flighted out of the place with a hemorrhage in his anus, basically, from what this kid allegedly did to Trump. If that's true, we don't know. When did it become normal for half of the country to disregard federal law? Seems like that's going on more and more. Border Czar Tom Homan announces the end of ICE surge in Minnesota. But you didn't get all the bad guys out yet, did you? No, you got some, but there's still problems in that state. You never found out who are these groups that are coming into the state and doing all these protests. Mamdani reverses campaign promise for rental assistance program. Turns out it's too expensive. Mamdani's campaign website read during his run for mayor, quote, Zorro will drop lawsuits against city FHEPs and ensure expansion proceeds as scheduled and per city law. State Department could pull passports from parents who owe child support. It's simple. Deadbeat parents need to pay their child support. Wow, they might take your passport away. It's interesting. Trump administration finds 3,364 unaccompanied alien children who went missing under Biden in Minnesota. Tom Homan, in addition to taking public safety threats off the street, ICE here in this state have located 3,364 missing unaccompanied alien children. So maybe that's why people in Minnesota are fighting so hard, because there's a lot of illegal aliens there. And a lot of kids there who are illegal aliens. New York City's only Ethiopian Israeli restaurant closes after anti-Zionist harassment. So much animosity. And this woman's Ethiopian, who owns the place, by the way. And is getting death threats and being harassed. It's just unbelievable. You can't even own a business here anymore without these people coming down on you for some bullshit. Uncanny warm-skinned robot built to feel as human as possible could show up in service worker roles. Well, it's only a matter of time till they start making these things for like sex robots that are really almost indeterminate from human, and then you're going to have a problem, right? Then you're in the, what's that movie called? Then you got problems when you can't tell robot from human. Mamdani administration dismisses questions about 7 who died of hypothermia at home. Usually if this heat's out in the building, you get a bunch of heat complaints, and then the city comes in and gets an emergency boiler, just something. It's rare that people freeze to death in their houses here. That's very rare. I've never heard of that happening really before. The fact that 7 people died that way during the cold, and that the department, that the city never got the heat complaints and got over there, that's usually there'd be they would notice a bunch of complaints in one building about heat and get over there quick, but that didn't seem to happen. I wrote, so the real number is 26 dead. 7 more froze to death in their homes. The temperature falls below 50. My house should be 68 degrees or something like that. It shouldn't be 30 or 40, whatever. Secret Jared Kushner gossip rocks Trump's inner circle as spies intercept high-stakes phone calls. Something's going on with Kushner. Trump's antitrust chief abruptly resigns from the DOJ. The USDA launches vital farm security plan to shield American farmland from foreign buyers. Yeah, that's got to be done. And in fact, any purchase of over like 100 to 500 acres should be looked at very strongly at who's buying it. Right? It should only be American citizens can buy anything over 1,000 acres. Foreigners shouldn't be allowed to buy any property that big. Ghislaine Maxwell alleges that 25 men settled with Epstein victims, protected by NDA. So you're never going to find out who they are. And you're never going to find out who was on Epstein Island, as far as I can tell, because the 200 phones that they geolocated that were there, they're not going to let you know who they are. My guess is that he doesn't pardon Ghislaine. It just looks too obvious. And he'll let her rot in there. And then what's she going to do? Come back and say, I want to testify again? She can't then, right? She blew her load. If you want to say something, you had your chance. You pled the fifth. Well, now it looks like you were part of it, right? The Dalai Lama denies meeting Epstein after being named in the files. You sure you didn't meet him? Sure? The scariest revelation from the new Epstein files, Mike Benz. You can watch that video. New York City gets its first free grocery store, but it's not one Mamdani had in mind. There was like 200 people online for this place. It's not going to have much food left after they get done in there. If you're going to have a free store, you got to make sure that the people using that store actually, first of all, really need it, right? And then how does it pay for itself? The city, it's not generating any income, so you have to keep paying. The city has to give it free rent, and it has to. The people who work in there have to get paid. Who pays them? Mamdani's tax the rich agenda leaves city council members fuming as they plan for New York City budget. This guy doesn't have any out. The only thing he can think of is let's tax the rich more, which is what socialism always tries to do. It doesn't want to have any rich people in socialism. It wants everybody to have the same. Well, then how are you going to tax the rich then in a socialist system? You can't, right? How do you raise funds in a socialist communist type system? When the people don't have much, you can't tax them that much, right? Because they don't have that much. The reason that we have all these roads and services and things is because that some other countries don't give their citizens is because we pay a lot of tax for it. Heavy taxes. Look at New Jersey. It has some of the most intricate road systems through the state. You could get anywhere you want. There's a toll road system. Yet their gas is very cheap compared to New York and other states right nearby. Why is their gas cheaper, so much cheaper than the gas in New York? You can't tax the rich and solve all your problems. It doesn't work like that. You have to manage the people's funds properly and honestly. Then you could have plenty of money to do certain things. DHS shutdown at the end of Friday inevitable as Senator Thune admits lawmakers are not close to a deal. So they're going to shut down the DHS, which isn't going to stop it from working for a time. What about the rest of the country, though? You didn't shut that down. ICE director says the agency's tracking 800,000 criminals. That's a lot of people, man. Not really compared to how many were let in illegally. There's millions more you got to remove. Millions and millions and millions more. You're not even close. You just scratched the surface of the issue. You didn't even touch the surface almost. Top Goldman Sachs lawyer Kathy Rumler to resign over Epstein links. This is a woman that was one of the lead counsels for Obama. Was connected right up to Epstein. Receiving gifts from him, having emails with him. 1.6 million illegal aliens have final orders of removal. 800,000 are convicted criminals. ICE Director Todd Lyons. What we're tracking right now is about 1.6 million final orders in the U.S. That's a lot. With approximately 800,000 of those having criminal convictions. Don't worry, boys are hard to find. Sasha Riley interview, full audio. This is the full audio of the Sasha Riley video, that references Trump and other people. You can watch it at your leisure. It's long, and I don't have time to replay it. He makes several allegations against people like Trump and other powerful people that he was abused by. Multiple different kinds of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, beatings. He alleged he was sexually abused by Trump more than one time and others. Dr. Oz welcomed Epstein to Valentine's Day bash after he served time as sex offender. So people like Dr. Oz, Sanjay Gupta. Was it Sanjay Gupta? No, who's that other guy? Deepak Chopra is another real piece of crap, it looks like, talking about young girls with Epstein. Doctor at Jeffrey Epstein's post-mortem says the pedophile was strangled and not hanged. Yeah, that was Dr. Baden, the specialist, who had initially said he had some bone in his neck that was broken that would be something that could happen if you were strangulated with somebody strangling you. Maybe from behind with their forearm or with their hands. Trump pardons 5 former professional football players. Not sure why he would do that. Lawmakers say Justice Department tracking their Epstein file searches. So it looks like certain people like Jayapal and others, they were watching what they were searching. EPA eliminates greenhouse emission standards for vehicles. RFK Jr. admits, I used to snort cocaine off of toilet seats while discussing germs. I bet you did. He apparently also ate dog at one point, I wrote. Rubio warns Europe to expect changes as world enters a new era. Ex-OSU board member Les Wexner to testify in federal sex abuse lawsuits. So that's a big story. They're finally going to have Les Wexner on the stand. Is he going to take the 5th? Probably. Former Ohio State University board member Leslie Wexner must testify in federal lawsuits accusing the school of enabling sex abuse by Dr. Richard Strauss. So this has something to do with a sex abuse case for somebody at the school. It does put Wexner under the purview of the court system for a time, which he desperately doesn't want to be part of, I'm assuming. Columbia University axes personnel after files reveal Ivy League admitted Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend through irregular admissions. Yeah, so what he was doing was he just gave a bunch of money to the school and said, hey, can we, maybe I bribe her way in? She's not smart enough to get in here. That's why, I've been to some of these schools. I've known people who've gone to Ivy League. They're not that smart as you think. Trust me. Some of them are, but they're not really that smart. And you know what these people hate more than anything is when they meet somebody that's just an everyday Joe who's smarter than them. That drives them fucking nuts. Especially if you don't have any money and you're just from like a regular type family. You're not from one of these privileged groups and you're smarter than them. They hate that. They hate you so much because you can see right through their bullshit, right? Dubai's bin Sulayem quits DP World after Epstein ties exposed. So all these people are being exposed as tied to Epstein. He was tied into these sheikhs, a lot of them, and stuff like that. Dubai and UAE and different areas of the world. Pro-pedophile group campaigns in Seattle to normalize adults being sexually attracted to children. You can also look up NAMBLA. They had that group before this group, which was the National Association of Man-Boy, love or whatever. love and attraction or whatever, right? Men attracted to young boys. That's what it was billed as. No, you're a pedophile. That's what it is. Let's not make it into some group that makes it sound a little bit more appetizing than it is, right? Because it's not appetizing in any way to most people. The least laid generation in history. Gen Z is ghosting sex, and the implications are huge. Yeah, why aren't these kids having sex? They don't seem to want to, and they don't like to drink a lot of alcohol either. Alcohol consumption down 54% in some of these Generation YZ. That's why you're seeing all these liquor companies go out of business, and that's good. Because alcohol is bad for you. It's a poison. It's a refined poison. We already spoke about it. Why do you think they call it spirits, right? Lets the spirits in. It opens you up in a bad way. I quit alcohol about 7 years ago. I stopped drinking alcohol. Never had a problem. Never was an everyday drinker because I couldn't deal with the hangovers. But I just remember about a couple of years in, I started feeling so much better. Same thing when I stopped smoking cigarettes. Just huge improvement in my health and my strength. My body felt better. My circulation got better. My heart rate was better. My blood pressure went down. I don't have high blood pressure anymore. The least laid generation. Well, it's a problem. If you're not getting laid and having sex, then you're not reproducing. If you're not reproducing, then you have societal. You could have your whole culture could be wiped out in a generation or two if you don't have enough children. Chicago claims its budget is balanced, but independent audit shows a $41.1 billion deficit. That's triple the deficit of New York City. So Chicago's even more horribly mismanaged than New York, if you can believe it. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan is working on sanctuary city crackdown legislation. Jordan went on to describe the difficulties of apprehending criminal immigrants when law enforcement in so-called sanctuary cities opt to release them onto the streets instead of flagging them for immigrant enforcement. Yeah, that's a problem that's happening in a lot of the blue cities. They're just letting criminals out instead of ICE is asking them to hold them, and they won't do it. Which, if you think about it, is a crime, because if you let a criminal out in the street and then they hurt somebody, well, you should be... It's the same thing as like the bartender who serves a client that he thinks is drunk at the bar, right? A bartender can cut you off if you appear too drunk and you're in a driving culture. It doesn't happen so much in New York, but because guys, you can take a cab. Most people aren't driving, but, you know, in most cultures with driving, yeah, a bartender has a responsibility to make sure he keeps an eye on people, assuming you're driving, right? And then you can't have too many. If I overserve you and you crash and kill somebody, I could be held liable as the bartender or as the owner of that bar. Exposed inside the New York City condo building where Jeffrey Epstein secretly kept his underage victims. It's a building on 66th Street, East 66, that his brother owns, what we spoke about before. His brother owns a building. It looks like it's about a 20-story, 18-story building, something like that. So it has a bunch of apartments. And that would have been a very expensive acquisition. But that's apparently where some of these underage girls are being held and kept. Opinion piece, how dash cams revealed 10% of sidewalk sheds are illegal in New York City. These things really are a nightmare. And if 10% of them are illegal, why is nobody doing anything about enforcing these? It's the same thing with the food carts. You call up and you tell the guy, hey, listen, there's a food cart. It's parked near my house, right? My window is only 30 feet away from where this guy is, and it smells. I can't open my windows most days because when this guy's cooking that food because it smells, and it's coming in my apartment. Can you remove the cart? And they say, no, we can't, sorry. He has a right to stay there, which doesn't really make any sense. And these sheds are just ugly. They allow for homeless to live underneath them. They're dark. Some of them are poorly lit. And it just creates problems. It's a blight on the city. There's aggressive weed dealers now slinging weed from tents along busy New York City sidewalk in the Bronx, drawing outrage over drug igloos. I mean, what the hell? Why would you buy from a drug igloo guy when you can go into a dispensary that you know the weed, where the weed's been, you know how it's grown, where it's from, Why would you buy street weed from these people anymore? It doesn't make any sense. I can get the finest marijuana in the world. I can get 20 different kinds of marijuana in a dispensary, a legal dispensary. Why would I go to you? Gavin Newsom ditches California again as he continues jet-setting around the globe while the state battles crisis after crisis. So I wrote, what is this guy doing? He's going to Davos and all this shit where he shouldn't be. Ex-royal protection officer says he's contacted police after he saw Andrew bring women to Buckingham Palace multiple times a week and was not allowed to know their names. So somebody was bringing a lot of women to this guy's obviously got a sex addiction and or some kind of sexual peccadillo that he can't. When you're a royal, you can't just go out and go to a strip club, right? People are going to see you. They're going to know you. They see your face there. It's going to be all over the news. The paparazzi is going to be following you. So everything this guy does has to be brought to him, right? He can't go out too much. If he does, he gets seen in the clubs. And although he didn't mind getting seen in the clubs during the 90s and early 2000s, he was all over the clubs. Famous Palestinian activist calls for dogs to be banned as indoor pets in New York City because they're un-Islamic. Well, you know what? I wrote, good thing the majority of New Yorkers are not Muslim. We love dogs in New York City in America. If you don't like them, go move somewhere else. Right? We don't really care about your religion and what it says about dogs. We like dogs here. We've always liked dogs here in this country for a long time. If you don't want dogs around you, maybe you should go back to where you're from. How about that? Why don't you go back to your country and help it get fixed? Jeffrey Epstein's trust cashed the Powerball? February 2nd, 2026 article. What's the odds on that? How did Jeffrey Epstein's trust win the Powerball right after he got indicted? This is from 77 WABC News. This isn't from some obscure website. This is mainstream news. February 2nd, article 2026. Jeffrey Epstein's trust cashed the Powerball. Newly resurfaced reporting shows that Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Trust hit an $85 million Powerball jackpot in 2008, shortly after Epstein was jailed in Florida on prostitution-related charges. The revelation, first reported by Reuters, has reignited scrutiny over Epstein's finances and the opaque trusts tied to his wealth during a period when he was already facing serious criminal consequences. See, there's a difference between a trust and a will, okay? Understand that, especially when you're dealing with somebody that died, right? If you want to not deal with probate so much, you might make something called a trust, where all your assets will be put into that trust upon your before or after your death, and usually before. And then express instructions would be left how to give out those assets to whoever you want to in your family, your sons and daughters, whatever, on your death. And that way you can avoid the probate of what a living will or a will would have you. Because a will needs to get probated upon your death, right? That could take up to a year or more, depending on the amount of assets in the estate. According to the report, the winning ticket was connected to Epstein's Zorro Trust, adding to long-standing questions about how his money was managed, shielded, and grown, even as his legal troubles mounted. Yeah, this guy ends up being worth like $600-700 million or more. Right? He's almost a billionaire. He may have been a billionaire. How does he do that? How does he get Les Wexner's mansion for like $5? We don't know. How does his trust end up winning the Lotto, the Powerball, unless it's actually a rigged event? I'm assuming we know now that the Lottos are rigged, right? You saw those billion-dollar prizes all of a sudden that kept coming up that never were seen before. Here's the original article from the Oklahoman. Anonymous winner collects $29.3 million lottery prize. From the Oklahoman. This is August 25th, 2008. I just want to include the article so you can see it. From the Oklahoman. Anonymous winner collects $29.3 million lottery prize. The Zorro Trust presented the winning ticket last week, said Rebecca Fast, a lottery spokesperson. The jackpot was $85 million. The winner chose the lump sum payout, which reduced the prize by about half after taxes. The trust collected $29.3 million. So why was this done? Was this done to give money to Epstein after he's caught, to help with his funds and to keep him quiet? Maybe. Somebody obviously helped him, right? The odds of the Zorro Trust winning that are so astronomical. Last call for Lolita Express. Flight logs to Epstein's private jet reveal full sickening extent of the pedo financier's 90 secret trips to Great Britain and his visits to see his friend Andrew. So he flew 90 different times just to England alone, which is a lot, right? I'm assuming that's one of the hubs where he's either picking up or bringing women to. He's obviously bringing women to Andrew, right, for a time. And then Andrew's begging him to come to his mansion where he could frolic all he wants without having to worry about the paparazzi all around him. My investigation uncovered the fact that Epstein owned 4 different planes. Remember that. Not just the Lolita Express, which was the biggest one. That was the 747 type plane. But he had 3 other smaller planes, right? Just remember that. Plus the $1 million plus helicopter he buys for Ghislaine to fly. And he may or may not have had a sub, we don't know. DHS shuts down indefinitely starting this weekend amid the budget battle. So the DHS is going to shut. The Ray FBI opened 1,200 assessments of sensitive figures like politicians, journalists, and clergy. Assessments were created in 2008 as a special investigative tool for the FBI that require no factual predicate to launch and permit agents to use a wide range of investigative techniques. This is unbelievable, right? It doesn't require a predicate. There's no factual predicate to launch this, which means you don't have to have any factual evidence whatsoever, and you could launch an investigation into somebody or something, which gives the FBI a huge amount of power, if you think about it, because usually there has to be some factual evidence first before an investigation is launched into somebody, especially of a criminal nature. That would be like me investigating you for murder when I have no evidence showing that you were at the side of the event of the murder. There's no evidence connecting you to the murder weapon. There's no evidence connecting you to the scene. There's no evidence showing you were anywhere near there. There may be evidence showing you were in another place at the time of the murder. I don't care about that. I'm going to still look into you. That is power that no agency should have. So, friends, it's another 2-hour news movie, unfortunately. I apologize. I hope you're doing well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. We're at the point now where these Epstein files are dominating the news stories. And there are some interesting things. Was Epstein trying to corner the silver market at some point with some big whales? That he was he had Gates and Musk and Thiel all in his friendship, and Zuckerberg and his friendship group. With those 4, you could have cornered the silver market easy. You could have bought up all the contracts under false companies, false trusts set up, and done it. But it's almost impossible to buy all the contracts because there's just too many other players vying for those contracts as well. There's other big banks, there's other big players, and in a world where your financial orders can be filled within seconds, it's almost impossible that you could corner the silver market at this late date, even with large whales on your team. But you could corner a significant amount of it possibly and affect its movement, right? Which is what you're seeing people do. So, friends, we'll have to wait and see how we work out of this. What happens with Trump eventually? Does any of these charges that keep coming up against Trump, do they start to stick? Do they start to force him to think about stepping down? Is Trump's health become an issue? The fake Trump? Is the real Trump ever seen again? There's too many unanswered questions here that we have to deal with, that we're still trying to deal with. So, friends, I hope you're doing well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. Using the I am attribution each day if you choose to simply say I am and something positive about yourself. You can speak your reality into existence. You can use the God mouth to shape your world in a positive way if you choose to. So I hope you're well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. This is your friend in New York, Ash, NPMP News, signing off for now.